Good evening, everyone. It's lovely to have you along. I'm Peter Raftopoulos. I'm the president of the Ithacan Historical Society. So we look forward to having you back and resume our lecture series for 2022, following on from our earlier lecture series last year. We have a program that's been released up until October this year. So we have several lectures planned and even a couple in-house if you're in Melbourne. If you'd like to come into the club rooms, we'd love to have you there. Today we resume with a very important Greek scholar with Ithacan origins, research professor Emerita Machi Paizi. Her research has a particular focus on the role of the Orthodox Church as a political ideological force for the Greek-speaking Christians under Ottoman rule between the 15th and 19th centuries. Professor Paizi has a research director at the Institute of Historical Research and of the National Hellenic Research Foundation, as well as being appointments to many other scientific bodies, including as General Secretary of the Centre for Odyssean Studies based in Vathi, Ithaca. Professor Paizi has published on the 17th century notarial documents from Ithaca and has written on the early 20th century nautical school founded by Othon Stathatos at Vathi, the topic of what she will be talking to us today. So I welcome Professor Paizi as our first speaker of 2022, and we look forward to her lecture. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's an honor for me to speak to you today. And so, dear Ithaca friends in Australia, αγαπητοί φίλοι όπου και αν βρίσκεστε, dear members of the Ithacan Historical Society, I want to express my thanks for this invitation, which gives me the opportunity to meet you, travel together in Ithaca. Special thanks to Kyriakos Nikias for his help. Today, we will talk about a school that glorified the island in the early 20th century. So let us sail into the harbor of Vathi. There you see Vathi and the small island of Lazaretto, and another view of Vathi. I was on holiday in Ithaca. In fact, I was swimming in the turquoise waters of when I was surprised to hear ringing my mobile phone, and I saw the mail that had just arrived with the honorary invitation of the Ithacan Historical Society of Melbourne to talk to you about a topic that concerned me some years ago, the Nautical and Commercial School of Stathatos. I must tell you that I accept this invitation without any hesitation, because I'm moved by the love that the Ithacans of the diaspora maintain for the island, for our small but glorious homeland. I had a sample of this love and interest several years ago. Ithacan Historical Society, and it willingly accepted to help the Ithacan Historical Archive in the island financially to settle in a decent place and to make a catalogue of the historical material, a task that was done and now facilitates those who study the history of our island. The archives and treasures hidden there have intrigued me since the early years of my studies. This path was illuminated for me by a great university teacher, Dionysios Zakithinos, from Kefalonia. Since then, I have made sure to get acquainted with paleography, the science that teaches you to read, approach, and draw from the old documents and manuscripts the richness they contain. The historical archive of Ithaca contains documents dating back to a long period from 1600 to the present day. And to think that the earthquakes of 1953 caused losses in the archive as well. However, this archive is not the only place where one can discover valuable material for the history of our island. For example, the Stathatos school archive, which we will talk about today, is not preserved there, but is in the Naval and Folklore Museum of Vathie, along with material related to this school. These are 5 large format books, 30 centimeters by 43 centimeters, in which the activity of the school is recorded. However, the surviving data are enough to give us the image of this pioneering institution, which was inspired, established, built, financed, and supervised its operation by the great Ithaca benefactor, Othon Stathatos. Othon was the 3rd child of Antonios Stathatos. His father, a ship owner, traded mainly on the Danube River, as did many other Ithacans. Othon was born in 1844 in Ithaca. And followed in his father's footsteps. He settled in Romania, where he partnered with his cousins Panagiotis, Ioannis, and Antonios Theophilatos, and they created a stronger shipping company that dominated the Mediterranean seas at the beginning of the 20th century, securing him a large fortune. The company was attended by the brothers of Othon, Dionysios, a specialist in ship mechanics, and Constantinos, with a special commercial education in Trieste, Italia. After the death of Panagiotis Theophilatos, the company was dissolved and the Stathati brothers established their own company and expanded their businesses, creating a whole fleet of large steamships, tugs, and river boats on the Danube. Hundreds of Ithacans worked on the Stathatos company ships, as from the first captain to the last sailor. All the crews of the steamships and tracts, even the clerks of the offices and foreign affairs were mostly Ithacans. By 1895, Othon was a rich merchant and a ship owner. But his health was shaken, and he then decided to settle in Athens and to manage his commercial activities from Greece. He bought a central place on the corner of Vasilissis Sophias and Herodotos Street and built the now famous Megaro Stathatos, entrusting the plans to the famous architect Ernst Schiller. And as you see in this photo, today this houses the Cycladic Museum. He would live there with his wife Athena until his death, which occurred in Athens in December 1925. His wife was born in Patras in 1864 and died in Athens in 1937. Her father of Athena, Dimitrios Kyparissis, was president of the Court of Appeals. Despite his cosmopolitanism, Othon never forgot his small homeland, which had made him love the sea and dedicated himself to it. A true descendant of his Homeric ancestor, he fostered the Homeric spirit of Nostos in him, the desire to return to his paternal home, the nostalgia to return to his homeland. So he returned with the decision to offer to his homeland something unique for the time, a high school that would equip university-level merchant shipping captains from all over Greece with special focus, naturally enough, for the children of Ithaca. At this point, you may find it useful for me to recall some details of the state of maritime and education in Greece in those years. When the revolution of 1821 against the long Turkish occupation succeeded, and the now liberated Greece gained national status in 1828, the issues that had to be resolved at all levels were so many that the establishment of a facility for specialized naval and commercial education was not seen as a first priority. Instead, priority was given to basic education, which would allow every young citizen of the newly formed state to be able to perform the basics, to read and to write. However, as technological developments of the last decades of the 19th century required those who captained the newly steam-powered ships to combine knowledge from different areas, the basic educational qualifications of naval workers, which had served well until then, now needed to be supplemented with special technological knowledge. I'm sorry, there is some noise in the building. I don't know if you hear it. I'm sorry, I cannot do something about this.
It's okay.
The need to teach the nautical trade began to grow slowly, and the state began to encourage island schools to teach students some skills in seafaring. However, there was no corresponding response to this initiative. In 1882, Harillos Trikoupis, Prime Minister of the young Greek state, realizing how knowledge was crucial for the recovery of the state economy, promoted an educational program that included, among other things, the establishment of naval schools in parts of Greece that had a tradition of seamanship, such as the island of Ida in the Saronic Gulf off the coast of Athens. This time, however, the nautical courses were aimed at a more advanced stage of education. But again, the good intentions remained on paper. Society seemed to have had different priorities, and so Trikoupis' plan did not find a response. In 1900, the Petricius Merchant Marine School was founded in Lixouri of Kefalonia, but even this effort remained in the planning stage without ever coming to fruition. A new attempt was made after a few decades, but again the response was limited. The naval schools established in Spetses, in the islands of Spetses, of Hydra, Kefalonia, the city of Volos, in the island of Syros, accepted few students and gradually declined. This was the climate when Othon Stathatos decided to establish a maritime school of commerce in his small homeland. The atmosphere was not at all encouraging and logically should have discouraged him. But the failed attempts seemed to have encouraged this stubborn Stathatos, who deeply believed that the area of a shipping based only on the captain's experience was over, and that the new technological conditions required a higher level of knowledge. So Stathatos decided to allocate a very large amount of his fortune to achieve this goal, which was none other than to create a school that would overcome the weaknesses of those which had preceded and failed. His idea of establishing a nautical school in Ithaca had already been expressed in 1903, when he drafted his first will. According to his testament, he intended to dispose part of his fortune to establish a commercial nautical high school, a nursing home, and a workshop for poor girls in the island of Ithaca. One part of the sum was allocated for the building, and the rest of the money was deposited in a bank in Switzerland with the intention for the finances of the institution to be maintained from the interest of the deposit. He instructed Ernst Schiller, the architect mentioned above, who had designed his house in Athens, to design the new schoolhouse in Ithaca, while for the functional design of the school, its mode of operation, and its curriculum, he appealed to the Swiss educator and pedagogue Jules Verne. Here is the Megaron Stathatos in Athens by night. The greenhouse, it's a splendid building, the entrance, and now we are here. It is well known, of course, that the grand school building designed by Schiller was destroyed in the earthquake of 1953, which swept away the building along with its equipment. However, some books from his archive, those that have been saved and are kept, as we already said, in the Naval and Folklore Museum of Ithaca, allow us to reconstruct the rules of operation of the school, the endowment of its facilities, books and furniture, the lessons that were taught, the students' performance, and the methods of discipline applied by the school, the laboratories for the teaching of engineering, optics, acoustics, electrical and heat, the supervisory material for the course of anatomy, zoology, botany of mineralogy, as well as cosmography, navigation, but also the maps and everything needed for the teaching of arithmetic, geometry, and physical education. The recordings in these books are detailed and allow us to reconstruct the now lost image of the school. In addition to the library and its books, 50 teachers' desks, Venus chairs, shop windows, desks, oil lamps, and even a heating device for heating water are recorded. Details that give an indication of the measure of Stathatos' care for his school. The management of the school was assigned to the Swiss educator Jules Verne, as I already mentioned, while German, English, and French teachers were invited to teach the specialist courses. The Greek lessons were assigned to Panos Paizis, who taught Greek, to Konstantinos Karabatsos for mathematics. The notary Georgios Vlasopoulos undertook the teaching of maritime law, and Thrasivoulos Stavru taught Greek literature. In the summer of 1907, everything was designed to the last detail. The building shone with grandeur, the halls were equipped, and the desks were waiting for the new students. The applications of the candidates had passed the necessary tests, and the first students have been selected. Let us clarify here that the school accepted the students aged 14 to 16, graduates of a Greek school with a grade of at least good standard. Priority, of course, was given to students of Ithaca parentage. Indeed, out of the 44 students of the first year, 23 were Ithacans, 12 were selected from Kefalonia, 4 were from Lefkada, and 1 from Corfu, 1 from Stathatos, 1 from Messina, and 1 from the island of Seriphos. The study lasted 4 years and was free for everyone. All the preparations for the school's opening had now been arranged, and all that was left was the opening ceremony to declare the school open to Ithacan and Greek society. At this point, I would like to share with you a nice surprise I had 2 years ago at an auction in Athens. An unexpected finding appeared that filled a gap not filled from the 5 books of the rescued school archive. This was a handwritten score that contains the piece of music that was composed to be played at the opening of the school in honor of the founder, author Stathatos. On the first sheet, there is a dedication to him. We offer this hymn to the friend of education, the founder of the Nautical and Commercial School, author Stathatos, with respect. While on the last sheet, we find the composer's signature. It was the Italian Francesco Nicolini, who 3 years ago had taken over the direction of the Ithaca Philharmonic. The work notes the date, Ithaca, July 24, 1907. Below the notes are written the lyrics by George Salvanos that praise the offer of the founder. I donated an exact copy of this score to the Ithaca Philharmonic because now it belongs to Onassis Foundation. I hope that someday they will play this music. With the finding of this score, it is now possible to mobilize our imagination and live the atmosphere of that great day for the Society of Ithaca. September 1, 1907, the whole of Ithaca Society rushed to attend the inauguration ceremony. The event was greeted with enthusiasm by the wider Ithaca Society. In the local press named Telemachos, we read that author Stathatos endowed the island of Ithaca with a merchant marine school similar to which does not exist in any part of Greece. In 1912, when the first 4-year course was completed and the first students graduated, the same newspaper notes, teaching is mostly in French and English. Strictness prevails so that everyone who comes out is completely accomplished. The rigor of the school had yielded the first tangible samples. Out of the 44 students who enrolled in the first year, we learn that only 11 graduated, but all of them excelled in the exams. Out of 8 of the merchant department and 3 of the navy, not all of them settle brilliantly seats. The spirit of rigor seems to have not discouraged the prospective students. On the contrary, it increased the prestige of the school and with it the number of students. Thus, in the second year of operation, the students reach 100, half of whom have come from various parts of Greece. In the Telemachos newspaper, we read again, The reputation of the school spreads, and many young people from Patras, Athens, and other parts of Greece come in large numbers to attend the lessons of this school. All of Ithaca, recognizing the great benefit, is grateful to the founder. But what infrastructures existed in the island in those years to serve non-Ithaca students? From the rescued books, we learn that they lived as interns in Ithaca families who provided them with shelter and food. In one of the 5 books of the archive, next to the name of each student who did not come from Ithaca, is written the corresponding name of the family in which he lived. Details about the information given in these 5 books are presented in my book on Stathatos School. This one is this book. As for the teachers, obviously there was provision for them to live inside the school, judging by the fact that 2 bathtubs and a hot water bath are recorded. The school, anticipating that the conditions in the houses where the students lived would not possibly favor the study, provided a special space inside the school, the study room, where students could, after teaching, prepare under the guidance of a teacher and study as late afternoon. But the end of utopia came. The lifespan of the school was not what was expected for its founder or for the society of Ithaca as well. An ambitious and serious project with conditions of success was abruptly stopped, and the Stathatos school came to an end in 1914. The reasons that led Othon Stathatos to stop the operation of the school are not known with certainty. We know that in the parliamentary elections of 1912, he, Othon, ran for office, but his compatriots voted against him, a fact that made him feel frustrated. Later came the First World War and its terrible consequences. Perhaps these 2 factors were the reason that led Stathatos to the decision to close the school permanently in 1914. In 1915, after 7 years of operation, Stathatos donated the campus, the building, and all the equipment of the Nautical school to the Greek state to establish a 6-grade primary school there, on the condition that there be additional classes in which nautical and commercial lessons would be taught. The sum of 700,000 drachmas, the interest of which maintained the school, was allocated by him for the establishment of Athlon Stathatou, an institution whose purpose was the education of teachers and assistants of all kinds of genius. The abolition of the school shocked the Ithacan Society. On the front page of the newspaper Telemachos, we read, "After the announcement of closing the Stathatos school, gloom and silence, sorrow and despair seized our island. However, despite its short duration of operation, this school formed men who excelled in the world of merchant shipping, justifying, even afterwards, the patriotic motives of its creator. And if today, from this brilliant school, are only left the 5 books of its archive and its old railings preserved and placed again in the newly built building of the primary school, the students, this is the school without the palm trees because the disease has destroyed them. The students who graduated from the school of Stathatos, adorned with their special knowledge, the shipping, but also the commercial and banking world of the first decades of the 20th century. Thank you for your attention, and Ithaca is waiting for us in a few months. Thank you again.
Thank you very much for presenting this wonderful lecture, Professor Paizi. We really appreciate your lecture, and we definitely look forward to continuing our association together. If you wouldn't mind, we would love to ask you a couple of questions so that we could ask some questions from people who would like to further delve into your specialty.
Of course.
You can either write.
I'm ready. If there are any questions, of course, or comments.
That would be great. We can either put it in the chat screen, or if you'd like to unmute yourself, you can ask the question directly to Professor Paizi.
Maybe I have to do something with my screen. It's okay for you? My screen?
Yes. Professor Paizi,
Okay.
you can click stop sharing screen and the PowerPoint presentation will end.
No, it doesn't work.
Okay.
Okay, I can see
I
if
can-
you see me,
I can do
it's
it
okay.
here actually. I did it now.
Excellent.
I think I will. I'll perhaps ask the first question just to
Here you are.
get things moving, and then hopefully other people may ask. I was thinking about the fact that this was a school which offered free education to students.
Yes.
So it must have had a great cost to Stathatos, and you talked about this and how luxurious the facilities were, and it was well supplied. So I was wondering if there was perhaps a benefit that Stathatos could accept from the construction of the school, other than merely as a philanthropic gesture. So was there a business motive behind this? Was it possible that this was that he was motivated by the fact that there was no suitable place in Greece to receive graduates who could become workers in his business? And do we have any evidence that people who graduated from the school took posts in his businesses or businesses like him, like the one that he owned in the Danube or the Mediterranean? Was there a connection between the school and the labor market for sailors and merchant seafarers?
Yes. As far as we know, most of the graduates find work as captains in different ship companies. And later, it is very well known that most of them were captains in the company of Onassis. And the company, ship company of Onassis, most of his captains were from Ithaca, and most of them were graduated from the Stathatos school. But unfortunately, there were few of students, since the duration of the school was only 7 years. Yes, it was a pity that the school came over so soon.
Machi, how many students did manage to graduate through that period of 7 years?
About we can suppose that about 30 students, since from this first period it was only, if I'm wrong, 25, I think, and then another 2 years, of the school. About, yes, it must have been 30 to 40 graduates.
And we don't know what happened to the others that didn't complete their studies there. Did they go on and...
No, we don't know. Surely they had some knowledge that was maybe.
Sorry, Professor Paizi.
Yes, I suppose, but we don't have any proof what they began to,
Sure.
where they began to work after the close of the school. We don't know.
Thanks for that, Machi. And was, as just returning to Kyriakos' question, was there any financial benefit for Stathatos in actually creating that school, other than providing an education to these students that maybe fed into his businesses?
Δεν κατάλαβα ακριβώς την ερώτηση, κύριε Νικία. Εάν υπήρχε... Κύριε Νικία.
Something Stathatos to benefit.
Δεν κατάλαβα καλά την ερώτηση. Δεν σας ακούω.
Just start. I'll just say it in Greek, because your voice is not very clear. Ήταν τίποτα που έλαβε ο Stathatos monetarily
from the States?
No, from
τι όφελο είχε, αν υπήρχε κάποιο όφελο για τον Σταθάτο πάνω από το φιλανθρωπικό σκοπό που...
No, nothing. All the money was the fortune of Stathatos. All the money for the school and the teachers was from the fortune of Stathatos. Maybe this fortune was very, very large, since after his death and after the death of his wife Athena on 1937, still until today there is Athlon Stathatou, this institution that gives money to young students to study abroad. So we can suppose that this fortune was very, very
Quite considerable.
immense.
Yes.
Very good.
Thanks very much, Machi. We have a question from Andrew Raftopoulos, if you'd like to ask, please.
Professor, thank you for your lecture. It's very interesting. The thing that interested me was the history of the Stathatos Maritime Company and the fact that it conducted business on the Danube River in Romania.
Yes.
Personal connection there. My mother's father, my maternal grandfather, Spiros Lekatsas, was a barge captain on the Danube in the period probably from early 1900s to the 1920s at least, maybe longer. And my mother was born in Romania and later to return to Ithaca when her parents passed away. But just because of that family connection, I was wondering whether there is any recorded history of the company that might cover that area of the business in Romania and its origins and when it was established and so on. Is there a generation, how many generations preceded Orthon in terms of the that activity and that business? Do you know that fact?
I don't know. I have studied those books that give us the information about the school. I don't know exactly what happened with Orthon company in Danube, but we know very well that many Ithacans were there and they have activity, commercial activity in the Danube ship. I suppose that there were there a commerce of what I'm not sure. What was the object of their commerce on Danube?
Well, mainly, what I understand from my family history is that my grandfather was carrying freight up and down the river, and it was mostly agricultural produce, I believe. I might be wrong, but any sort of cargo, I think, was transported up and down the river. Probably from more rural areas to the cities to market. I think it probably was primary produce of an agricultural nature, fruit, vegetables. I think the agricultural areas of Romania were quite rich compared to Greece, for instance, and they had very high quality produce, which was marketed in the cities. That's all I know from personal knowledge. But I was curious as to, for instance, what led my grandfather to migrate from Ithaca, and I don't even know when he did that. But I believe there was a very strong Greek and primarily Ithacan and Ionian community. There was in Braila, which was the city where my mother and her parents lived, had a strong and viable Greek community. They had their own church and church school, which my mother attended, and she learned Romanian and Greek, of course, and religious studies. There was a very grand, almost cathedral church in Braila, and there are illustrations of it. It's a very grand building. So there was I think dating back to early 1800s, there was quite a large Greek migrant community and present there in all sorts of businesses and activities. But I'm curious. I don't know the history of what attracted Greek migrants to Romania and particularly to set up such significant businesses and operations that were obviously very successful, like the Stathatos and others.
We know that Stathatos in his will left a sum of money for a church in Braila, and maybe he was, yes. And of course, another church, 2 churches in Ithaca, and he left many sum of money here and there.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the field that anyone would like to ask?
Peter?
Yes, Chris. Yes, I can hear you, Chris.
Hello, Professor Paizi. Thank you for your very thoughtful presentation. There was a lot of depth there, and if one searches, will find it all over the lecture. An interesting question, I think, is given that there was such a small success rate, in other words, students who graduated, would you think that the real cause was more or less indiscriminate acceptance of students, or was it a deliberate selection of the stronger academically students who should have really gone somewhere else to study if this was the criterion? Have you got any ideas about that?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure because the information we have is very, very few. We don't have information what happened. Even we don't know why Stathatos decided to stop his school after 7 years of. What is your opinion?
Perhaps indiscriminate acceptance of students. Perhaps.
Perhaps.
Because suddenly out of 0 in terms of students getting to 44 in year 1, it takes a lot of skill, abilities, competences, and so on to get them in. These students would have probably gone elsewhere if they were really of a caliber to join this particular school. On the other hand, the very low success rate suggests that there was a little bit of regret in indiscriminate acceptance of students. They were after the numbers. And this sort of thing happened quite often, not just in that sort of environment, but in many other parts of the world with new schools. Let's take on as many as we can. Let's make sure that the classes, that we got plenty of bums on seats, and then decide on quality of the brain afterwards. One should not be critical of the creator of the school. One should be grateful but it seems as if a little bit too lax admission was applied in this particular case. If there is evidence to the contrary, I would like to hear about it.
Mhm.
Thank you.
I thank you.
So is there any evidence of that, Machi, either way? Or has that record been, we don't have any, do we have any evidence of that, you know, evidence of that intake being a bit lax, Machi?
Excuse me, I didn't hear you very well.
Sorry, Professor Paizi. Was there any evidence that that the intake, the standard of intake was not very rigorous?
No, I think we have no any evidence. I would say, on the contrary, unfortunately, all the evidence we have from this school was those 5 books and nothing else, unfortunately.
Right.
Even those who graduated from the school did not leave any information for us.
Right. Maybe a question from Anna Velasquez.
No, I just want a clarification. I might have missed something because I had to step out for a minute, but I just want to know, what are the numbers that enrolled and what are the numbers that graduated? Do we have that? Do you have that data, that information?
Yeah, Machi answered that.
I didn't hear it. Sorry.
Maybe, Machi, if you could answer that again, please.
How many students enrolled and how many graduated each year? Or whenever the end of their...
From the first 4 years,
yes,
first graduated were 25 or something like this. So,
but how many enrolled in the beginning? 25 graduated, and
at the beginning there were 44.
Okay.
44, and from the 44, they graduated 25.
Mm-hmm.
Only 25. So we suppose that after 2 years from the second part of the graduates, maybe even 20.
Do we know if
total there were?
Do we know if those students, those 40, remained throughout those years, or did they withdraw? Because there are a whole lot of circumstances at Ithaca at that time which could have prevented students from completing not just their intellectual capacity. There's poverty. There, you know, a lot of young children left the island following other people that had migrated. You know, there's a whole lot of reasons. I guess to say that it's just because they weren't academically strong is a bit simplistic, I think, particularly in those times when it wasn't the norm for children on the island to continue to that level of education.
Yes, we know that most of them, they worked, as I already said, in the company as captains in shipping companies. But I think we don't have any more information about them.
Thank you.
Yeah, that seems to, without too much more information, and also, as Anna said, there were many various difficult circumstances. It's difficult to make an assumption on that part about the academic abilities. So it could have been just the difficult circumstances of that. Yes. I think it's quite a feat that actually 25 managed to graduate that first year, because that was quite significant for just to actually have people graduate all the way through in those periods when primary school would have been probably a significant achievement for many students, especially on the island. So we have another question from, is it a ferry?
My name is Andreas Ferentinos.
Ah,
Andreas,
Yes.
go ahead. If you'd like to ask.
We are connected with the Stathatos family.
ah,
I can provide you some stories month by month from my family. Stathatos left Ithaca because the treatment to his person after the elections wasn't the proper one.
ah,
So he left for Athens with Athena and Othon and Othonina, they used to call Athena.
Abba.
Yes. So they went to Athens. They built the sanatorium for kids, Pikpa in Vula. It's still the name on the hospital of Vula in Athens.
They gave
That
money
says that
for the
he
Pikpa.
built it,
Why she built
the
it?
Pikpa. Yes, still on the hospital of Vula. Now it's a hospital because
Yes,
Pikpa moved
Yes.
by the Greek government to the Penteli mountain.
Yeah.
And it was just for kids. He built also the
Really?
house. It was, yeah, and so he never went back to Ithaca. And on his how we call it, writing said that nothing will go from his money to Ithaca. So
Yeah.
it was the treatment from the Ithacan people that made Stathatos leave Ithaca.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, yes.
Maybe,
This is the truth. This is the truth.
maybe Professor Machi, you'd like to connect with.
Because my father, let's say, was related to Stathatos family. And finally, he was working for Stathatos company, and he died in a ship of Stathatos, the Nora Stathatos ship.
So you know very well.
And that's how I know the story.
Yes.
And my mother, the family of my mother, it was a Kurukli family from Braila, Romania. So I know many stories.
Yes.
I was born in Greece, though.
I'm not surprised from what you say for Ithacans and the treatment. Yes, unfortunately, this is a true.
Your name again? Sorry, I missed your name at the start there.
Andreas Ferentinos.
Ferentinos.
Andreas, have you recorded that history that has been verbally passed down to you? Because I think
no. I'm not so writing. I'm an engineer. I came I'm 10 years in Australia.
Are you visiting Ithaca?
Yes. From now and then, not. We have some land ownership, let's say, there in Aitos.
What? In Aitos?
Yeah. And the old Ferentinos ruins, let's say, up near Gardelaki. It used to be ours.
I know very well this side. These ruins. These ruins. It was. It must be a wonderful house there.
It was. It used to be. When I was before the earthquakes, I went there with my mother. It was like a palace, let's say.
Yes, yes. And the
Yeah.
site is
It was huge, you know, it was a huge house because over there they were staying the 5 daughters of Spiros Ferentinos, let's say. The builder of this house was Spiros Ferentinos. Yeah.
Yes.
So would you be interested, Mr. Ferentino, to record some of that? Maybe would Machi or even Kyriakos? No, right. Yeah.
Because I don't have any data,
Direct.
let's say.
Yes.
It's
yes.
that's by mouth from my family.
Yes, anecdotal type of.
You know, my mother was, let's say, a well-known Greek Romanian, let's say. We had parts in Sulina and, you know, in many ports.
Yes. And,
yeah, but after the war, they left. And that was it.
We would love to contact you just to make a little bit of, just a few details, because a lot of people would like to.
I have many stories of Ithaca.
Yes. Well, maybe we could.
Stories.
Yeah,
it would be very interesting.
It's not written because not many Ithacans, you know, they were keeping any data or.
And that's part of the Ithacan Historical Society. Would love to even if it's anecdotal, to interview you, or would you have an email address you could provide to us, or a telephone number, and then we can contact you?
Yeah, I have one. I'm a friend of on the Ithacan site, let's say, on Facebook.
On Facebook, okay. And
yes.
You live in Melbourne or Sydney?
Melbourne.
Oh, Melbourne.
I'm living in Point Coam. Yeah, I came 10 years ago as a pensioner because my wife is Australian, and you know, I got my pension in Greece, and I came here after 2012.
Oh, that's what's wonderful.
I fed up with Greece.
we can sympathize with you, Mr. Ferentino. Yes. We would love to get.
I used to go, you know, to Ithaca and enjoy.
Sure.
Ithaca.
Yeah, absolutely. We all do. We love going there in summer, but
yeah.
So we maybe Professor Paizi would like to speak to you further, and of course, Kyriakos.
Yeah, I am. You know.
Do you have any email address? It would be easier to have a contact with you.
Yeah,
what's your email address there, Arthur?
Shall I put it in the chat?
Yeah, if you put your.
That's my wife.
Come on. Yeah, no, that would be one.
Say, we can pop it in the chat if you like, or how can we send it?
That would be fantastic if you put it in the if you could put it in the chat. Yeah, in the chat section, that'd be that would be wonderful.
You see, I'm the old style.
Oh, you're not that old.
Yeah.
No, you're doing well. You're doing it. We will look forward to. Thanks very much for that. So we'll definitely get in contact.
Thank you too for the.
It was an excellent presentation,
yeah.
Professor. I thoroughly. Το ευχαριστήθηκα πάρα πολύ. Να είσαστε καλά. Ήταν πάρα πολύ ωραίο. Πολύ ωραία η παρουσίαση και πολύ ενδιαφέρον.
Χαίρομαι. Να έρχεστε λοιπόν στην Ιθάκη τα καλοκαίρια.
Ναι, πραγματικά.
Maybe if you could just upload a mobile number there as well, that would be really appreciated.
Yeah.
And
I'll pop that in now.
Thank you. So, Professor Paizi, thank you very much for.
Thank you. It was a pleasure for me to see all the Ithacans in Australia, And it was really a pleasure for me to
We-
give
we
Do you
will
have
some
any,
information.
can I ask something?
Absolutely.
Yes, of course. Yes.
Yeah, are you related to Dr. Paizi from Romania?
No,
No?
no, no.
Yeah, because he was an Ithacan, that he came,
There are many.
let's say, at
Yeah.
the 60s
Uh-huh.
from Romania,
From Romania.
as a
No.
refugee, let's say.
My family, no. This
No.
branch of Paizi, they have no any
Yeah. Okay.
any relations with.
Because they were
Romania.
friends, let's say, and they were from Romania and Ithaca. And I think
Did
his
you
daughter
know-
was coming.
Ah,
I beg your
did you
pardon?
know? Did you know Dennis Kiotis, the chemist, who lived in Melbourne?
Dennis?
Dennis.
No, I don't.
Skiotis.
I'm new in. I'm new in
you're-
Melbourne. I don't know anybody. We don't
Okay.
have any Greek relations. Yeah.
Well, we'll have to invite you to the Ithacan club rooms to get to know more people, Mr. Fernandino, and we look forward to developing our
Yeah.
relationship with you, and also
Yeah.
the many groups that we have: the Historical Society, the Philanthropic Society, and we have many events like we just had on at the Ithacan Club just this yesterday, actually. So we look forward to building a relationship there, and
It would be nice.
and that's what our society is really built on, is to build a relationship with us all Ithacans around the world. And we look forward to the next, we will have another session. Our next Zoom session will be in May. So,
Yes.
in May, on Monday the 9th. And the title is the 1807 Census of Ithaca. It will be given by Ioanna Athanasopoulou from the Ionian University, and we look forward to that in about 5 weeks' time. And we look forward to finding out more of our history. It's a wonderful book, and we look forward to seeing it. Machi, thank you very much again. We really appreciate it. We have your book in the club room, so if people would like to avail of it, we'll try to, we've got a couple of copies there that people can do research, come in and study it. And we look forward to, if others would like to order that book, we can also arrange that so that people can get access to that. So thanks very much, everyone. We really appreciate you
Thank you
attending.
too. It was very nice.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Very much.
Have a good night.
It was a
Thank
pleasure
you.
to meet all of you. Bye-bye.
Ευχαριστούμε
Bye.
και πάλι. Γεια σας.
See you all.
Ευχαριστώ και εγώ.
Thank you very much. Excellent night.